all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality in a way that is extremely empowering. Speaking of exploring powerful perspectives, I would like to gift my book, The Golden Key, Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance to you at goldenkey.gift, where you can get the audio or ebook as my gift to you by using the code POSITIVEHEAD at checkout. All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have my friend Gerald Rogers here with me on the show. Gerald is a speaker, author, and transformational seminar leader who has been featured on multiple mainstream media networks around the world. Over the last 10 years, he has trained tens of thousands of individuals on the art of conscious lifestyle design and how to tap into the power of their superconscious to create the life you are meant to live. Hey there, Gerald. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here, Brandon. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, man. Yeah, this is great. It's not always that it's, someone that I have spent quality time with in 3D that's a guest on the show. And we got to do that actually at originally Arcadia Festival,
Arcadia,
Aubrey
yeah.
Marcus's thing. Yeah. Yeah. So we've been talking about doing this for a while and super excited to dive in. So I'm going to hit you with my cliche opening question. And it is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You got 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
Yeah, that's easy. My passion is creating experiences and environments for people to come together and to experience what it's like to live as their highest and best self so that they can create the life that they want and to remember their deepest divinity and explore their humanity together.
Is that all?
That's it. It just helps people awaken to their purpose and change
That's
their
amazing.
lives.
That is everything. That is I definitely could borrow that passion myself. I feel you. So why don't you do this? I love to start off just hearing backstory, whatever feels relevant to share, how you ended up on this path that you're on. And yeah, we'll take it from there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, right now, like the essence of the work that I do is helping people activate the power of their superconscious. The superconscious is this part of us which has access to our highest and best self. It tunes us into our intuition, our inspiration. It's a gateway to miracles in our life. And it's this place that we are able to step into this quantum field of instant manifestation and just transformation. And the reason why I'm passionate about that is because I've been on a really, really intense journey of soul searching and trying to discover who I was and trying to break through my own patterns and limiting beliefs. And if I were to rewind back in time, if you were to go with me back to the early days of who Gerald was as an adult trying to figure out my place on the planet, I was really shy. I was insecure. I had all these like deep limiting doubts and beliefs that I wasn't good enough or that I didn't matter. And I was always trying to project to the world that I had it figured out, but deep inside, I felt like I was a total mess and I was totally worthless. Right. And so it felt like no matter what I did, I was never going to be enough. And so in my relationships, I struggled. I couldn't be vulnerable or authentic. For 16 years, I was in a relationship where I didn't know actually how to connect or how to experience love. And that relationship ended up collapsing because I didn't know how to be authentic. I didn't know how to love. I didn't know how to be loved. And then in my businesses, both my art business as well as my real estate business, I kept noticing I was constantly sabotaging myself. I was like, what the hell? Like what's going on? Right. Like I like to think myself as a smart, capable man, but my results would show otherwise. Right. And
right.
So it put me on this quest of like trying to figure out like why I wasn't actually creating the results I want. And it began with the conscious mind. So the conscious mind is that part of us that is the thinker and understanding and wants strategy. And so I would seek out these different mentors in personal development, like Tony Robbins or T.R. Becker, or
Mm-hmm.
all of these different teachers that teach in the 3D, how to create. And it's all this like very conscious wisdom and information. I was trying to apply it, and I could notice a few shifts happening, but it still wasn't clicking. It still wasn't making that big of a difference. I would get more frustrated with myself because I was trying to think my way out of my problems, and I didn't realize at the time that the healing couldn't come through the conscious part of my brain. But then, in pursuit of trying to understand this, I got introduced to the subconscious, right? And I started studying
Mm-hmm.
NLP and hypnosis and all these different neuro transmutation strategies of how to actually change what's beneath the surface. And I started to explore,
Mm-hmm.
what are the limiting beliefs I have? How do I develop this blueprint, and trying to figure out like the core beliefs inside of me that was like really broken. And the moment I did that, I started experiencing like really massive evolution in my life, right? Like the moment I could heal some of these broken wounds and patterns that I adopted as a child, then all of a sudden I started to feel different. I started to be more confident. I started to access more of my potential, and it was like beautiful. Um, but I still like kept running into like these patterns, that going through bankruptcy, and losing my real estate business, when the market crash happened, or going
Mm-hmm.
through divorce after being married for 16 years, like these moments where my entire life crumbled around me. And I felt like
Mm-hmm.
this like, you know, I kind of imagine like a caterpillar that's going into a cocoon, and his whole world like dissolves and becomes like this primordial goo. I feel like I've gone through that like 10 times in the last 15
Right.
years, like this evolution, like kind of like this phoenix, like burning down and like emerging on the other side. And I think that there's something innate in my soul that says I know I'm meant for something more, and I
Yeah.
must figure this out. And so with each of those evolutions, I would emerge feeling stronger and better, leaving behind these old parts of me. And over the last few years, moving beyond the subconscious, I realized that there's another part of our mind that we ignore sometimes, and it's the superconscious. Dr.
Mm.
Joe Dispenza and some of my other mentors in this field like really have helped me understand like beyond this internal mind, the conscious and the subconscious. Beyond that, there's a superconscious in which miracles occur, in which transformation emerges, in which we are able to really experience the fullness of who we're meant to be. And what I've noticed is in the last couple of years, since like really playing in the realm of my superconscious, I've been able to like manifest like the love of my life and have the soul partner that I'm able to create so much magic with, a depth of love and connection that I had no ability to even imagine previously in my
Yeah.
life. And to be able to like live my purpose, and to be able to say yes to everything in life that the universe is guiding me to, and all of these like I really live a miraculous life. And it's come because like these principles that I've learned around the superconscious. Does that make sense?
You've done the work, right? You've
Oh my
been.
gosh, so
It takes
many.
it takes courage. It takes so much courage too.
Yeah, and it's funny, like thinking about all the work. I've done countless ayahuasca ceremonies and psilocybin and like plant medicine. Then I've gone and spent a month in India with an enlightened master at the yoga meditation retreat, and I've done the
Mm.
10 days of silence. And I've
Mm-hmm.
been that seeker, like really trying to seek deep inside me, trying to understand where these keys exist to help me unlock who I'm meant to be
Yeah.
in this world.
Yeah. Yeah. So, speaking of the super conscious, can you kind of give your definition of, you know, conscious, subconscious, like super conscious, just for people who, maybe never heard? Most everyone's heard conscious, subconscious. I think super conscious for some people, it's probably like, hold on, what's that?
Yeah, I really appreciate this. This is something I was unaware of, for years and years of my journey. So the best way I can describe this is just imagine you have a computer, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the screen of the computer, what you see visually on the screen, is the conscious mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
What you're visually aware of in that moment. So the conscious mind is the active thoughts you have. It's your decision making process. It's the way that you figure things out. Like it's everything you're currently aware of, right? but
Yep.
that represents maybe 1% of what your
Yep.
body's experiencing in any given moment. So the conscious mind is
Right.
really useful for us to understand, to hear new details, to make new decisions, to be able to weigh up pros and cons. It's useful for what it's useful for, right? Like
Yeah. Right.
we're able to use the conscious, but the challenge is the conscious mind isn't actually the thing that drives us, right?
Right.
The subconscious, if the conscious mind is the screen, the subconscious is the hardware and the software.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the hard drive that stores all of these memories. Like your subconscious
Mm-hmm.
mind literally stores every memory you've ever had in entire life, and it's just locked there in that database.
Yep.
It's the programs that you run, right? Like we have all this software running that we were given both through our own memories and experience and also through epigenetics, right? Like the
Right.
unconscious mind stores these memories of past ancestors and the way that we survived. It's our survival instincts. And the subconscious also runs our autonomic nervous system and has your heartbeat and blood flow, and 43 trillion cells in your body are all being managed effortlessly by the subconscious. And it also stores our blueprint of beliefs, right? How we see
Yeah.
ourselves and how we see the world is driven by the subconscious programming. The challenge is a lot of our programs are outdated, and for many people, most people, all people, there's viruses that exist somewhere in there. The viruses that say I'm not enough, or I can't have what I want, or life is too hard, or relationships are whatever those viruses are. People are like running with these outdated, like most people are running their life based on, I don't know, having like Windows 99 still running in their computer.
Right.
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 They've
And
got a floppy drive still,
yeah, yeah. And so they're running their life based on these programs that were instilled when they were 5 years old, and they can't understand why
Mhm.
they keep sabotaging relationships, or they can't understand why they keep, being afraid of going out and interacting with a stranger, because they're just running off of outdated hardware or software. Right. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
so if that's a computer, then the superconscious is the Wi-Fi network. It's the
Mhm.
connection to all of the information that exists anywhere in the universe, right?
Yeah.
So the
Right.
superconscious is our connection to source. It's our connection to divine wisdom. It's our connection to our highest self. It's a connection to flow state and being able to like get into a space where it's no longer us that's driving the ship. The superconscious is this access point to deep intuition and being able to like really have this inner knowing of where we should go or where we should be. And the superconscious is also the unified field, right? Like really understanding that we
Mhm.
have a deep connection, right? This is how, you've heard stories of twins on the other side of the planet. One person gets hurt and the other twin on the other side of the planet is like, oh my gosh, what
Mhm.
happened? And instantly they know because of that invisible connection. And at a at an even bigger level, like the superconscious is access to the multiverse and all of these different
Mhm.
realms of possibility and these higher beings and channeled states. And it's also the place of what's called Shakti powers, right? Shakti powers are these miraculous superpowers that human beings witness, that seem that human beings experience, that seem superhuman, right? Shakti
Mhm.
powers of remote viewing or moving, telekinesis, moving things with your mind, or materialization, or you know being able to blindfold read. I don't know if you've ever seen this. People that
Yeah,
literally,
yeah, I have.
yeah,
It's
like have
wild.
their eyes completely blindfolded and they can read perfectly as though, I don't know. Like the first time I saw that, I was like, "What? I
I
thought you
know.
needed
It's
eyes to see." Like I didn't
yeah, yeah,
realize that eyes were not actually required for
yeah.
us to be able to. But it's like these superhuman abilities exist within the superconscious beyond our limited self, our human self.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah, that's a wonderful sort of analogy of, comparing it to a computer and how it all functions. And, I love the term that you use, conscious lifestyle design. And I know in your case, a big part of that for you is Metatron's cube and, you know, um, sort of the seven codes of conscious creation. And I'd love to hear you talk about all of that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And first of all, I just want to lay a foundation of what I mean by conscious lifestyle design. Most people,
Yeah.
the vast majority of humans on the planet, live unconsciously, and they live in a
Hmm.
reactive state, right?
Yeah. Yep.
They take on jobs just because they think that's what they should do, or what they should be, and they run 99% of their daily habits out of a reactive energy based on past programming, right? In a
Yep. Yep.
reactive state rather than a creative state, right? And so conscious lifestyle design begins by really tuning in. It's like, wow, what do I want? What do I want? And so few people in the planet even like take time to really tune in. It's like, wow, what do I want?
Yeah.
What does source want through me? And how
Yeah.
do I create that? So conscious lifestyle
Right.
design is really based on this belief that says I can and I deserve to have a life that I love. If you're living a
Hmm.
life that you love, it's most likely because you're living as a conscious creator.
Yeah.
So for,
Absolutely.
so for me in my life, this has been like such a core passion of like trying to understand for me how to create a life I love, but then also to support others in that journey too. So all of our life is centered around purpose, right? We're driven to make a difference. We're driven to live the fullest of who we're meant to be, to like reach our potential. And it was interesting for me in this process. Like I one time I was in Nepal. You know, I was guiding a retreat there, and there's a orphanage there that we support, and like these really extraordinary human beings, and like it's a really sacred country. There's a really rich spiritual history there, and I bought
Yeah.
this mandala when I was there. When I saw it, I was just like, oh my gosh, I need to get this, right? And this mandala is one of these like monks would spend like a month and a half painting like this really intricate mandala. And it had this symbol. And the moment I saw the symbol, it's like, oh my gosh, there is a code there. There's something I need to understand. There's a mystery that will be unfolded as I really sit time. And as I was sitting with it, all of a sudden I realized that there's these seven core principles. You know, it's like two triangles interwoven, and the symbol in the middle is like, oh my gosh, it represents like these seven principles. And I like sat and meditated, and then through a series of meditations, like I feel like this message was downloaded through me, right? Like
Hmm.
I don't take credit for this, what I'm about to share, but I feel like it's been like something I've been gifted as something I get a steward and sharing with the world, because
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
so profound and so liberating. So I'm going to go through these real quick, just as kind of a touch point, and then, you know, for anyone that wants to go deeper, you know, I invite you to like follow me in my work, and like really like this is the anchor point for everything I teach. But there's seven principles, and so Metatron's cube, for those that haven't seen it before, it's like two interconnected triangles, one facing up, one facing down, so it looks like the Star of David. And then
Hmm.
around the 6 points are six, you know, circles. And then
Hmm.
inside, in the very center, there's a seventh circle, and then there's some other circles in the inside, and then, you know, there's lines that connect all of them. So that's Metatron's cube. Search it up. Metatron was actually the Archangel Michael, was also Enoch. Like there's a whole history to who Archangel Metatron was, and what he represents. But his energy is like really prevalent in the world right now. It's like this awakening power. But here's the seven principles, and I'm going to go through these pretty quick. But I'm going to invite everyone that's listening to really drop in and see if you can find this energy inside of you, because these are the gateways to power. These are the gateways to alignment. All right.
Hmm.
So the first one is radical responsibility. Like this is the foundational energy. Foundation for all creation is taking full ownership for the results of our life. Radical responsibility requires us to step out of all forms of victimhood, believing that
Yeah.
someone or something else is responsible for the results in our life. The reason why people stay stuck is because they're in victim energy, believing that they are not in control. They're not responsible for what they're creating in their life. So radical responsibility says,
Absolutely.
I take 100% accountability and ownership for the results of my life. And that's the foundation. All transformation begins with that. The second principle is purposeful production. This idea is based on, we all have a limited amount of life force energy inside of us, and the most sacred responsibility we have is directing that energy to the things our souls are called to, right? Each of us. have a unique purpose and mission, just like yours, Brandon. Like you've done 1,900 of these episodes. You've poured a ton of your life force energy into creating and sharing this message and spotlighting these visionaries and these leaders and like offering this gift to the world, right? That takes an immense amount of energy. And when we're aligned with our purpose, we live an energy rich life, right? And we feel that energy inside of us, and then we can direct it towards the things that matter most so that we create meaningful results. And so the mantra for this one is, I am a powerful creator, feeling that energy of creation inside of us. The third principle is emotional sovereignty or vibrational sovereignty. It's this idea that everything is energy, and the most important thing that we're stewards over is our own emotional state. And the sovereignty means stepping out of emotional victimhood, where things and people outside of us are drawing our energy and causing us to feel certain ways. The emotional sovereignty is the space of like pure alignment and power, where we know that when we're living a high vibrational state, everything flows, everything works out, everything's easy. When we are our level 10 selves, there's no problem that's bigger than us. But if we're showing up as a level 4 or 5 self, then all of a sudden it's very difficult to overcome a level 6 problem, right?
Right.
So emotional sovereignty is like really understanding our emotions are the thermometer to tell us where we're at, in terms of our vibrational energy. So the next principle is unconditional love. Unconditional love is one of the highest vibrations we can experience on the planet. And when we experience unconditional love for ourselves first, then we can offer it to the world, right? Confidence, power, emotional connection, all of these things that are driven through the space of unconditional love, right? And so learning how to love our shadow and embrace our light, knowing how to come into that space of pure radical acceptance for ourselves and others becomes the gateway for so many miracles to occur. And then that leads to the fifth principle. And the fifth principle is unapologetic expression, right? Unconditional love leads us to a space of being able to offer the fullness of our voice, our gift with the world, right? There is a unique soul frequency to you, Brandon. There's a unique soul frequency to everyone on the planet that is unlike anyone else. And when we're trying to be someone that we're not, when we're trying to wear a mask in order to be liked, or when we're afraid to share the fullness of our voice and our truth with the world, then all of a sudden we're robbing the world and robbing ourselves from that soul frequency. And then from there, that leads us to the next principle, which is never-ending expansion. This idea that we're all just beginners. Like no matter how much we've done, there's always room to grow, and growth is the agent of life. When we're growing, we're living, we're thriving, we're feeling the fullness. When we stop growing, we begin dying, right? Like there's this energy to growth and possibility that exists, and really knowing that, we're all infants in this eternal game of life, and then the final principle is connection to source, being able to remember that we're connected to more than we can see. And so as I was like downloading these things, I could see them all applying my life. And then in the middle of a psilocybin journey, as I was like really in the cosmos, like really experiencing like this deep, profound, connection with God, I was like, oh my gosh, I realized that each of these principles was connected directly to one of the energy systems or chakra systems of our being, right? So the root chakra is radical responsibility. It's the foundation. It gives us solid. It gives us strength. It gives us power. The sacral chakra is purposeful production. It's our creative life force center. It's like where we have this sexual energy and this creative energy to bring life to things. The solar plexus is emotional sovereignty. It's where we find our center, where we become the eye in the center of the storm, where we find our strength. The heart chakra is unconditional love. Unconditional love is this access point for us to be able to share the fullness of our vibrational frequency with the world. The throat chakra is, of course, unapologetic expression. It's how we offer and share our voice and our truth with the world, how we bring our frequency of us to those around us. The third eye, the brow chakra, is never-ending expansion. It's the place of the quantum. It's a place of pure possibility. And the crown chakra, then is connection to source. It's the place where we realize that we're not just humans, but we are divine beings that happen to be wearing bodysuits for a temporary experience on earth. And in that remembrance, and all of a sudden, all sorts of possibilities exist. So that's the foundation of these 7 principles. And I hope everyone has heard that. You can kind of see why understanding and practicing these in your life would be like a really powerful tool for conscious lifestyle design and living the life you're meant to live.
Mm. Yeah, very, very cool. I love that. And I'm curious if, you know, I can see you in this moment as we're speaking, and you have Metatron's cube on a necklace. Is it something that you have found? Have you spent a lot of time sort of meditating on the visual image of it as well? Because I find that really fascinating, this idea of, you know, sacred geometry holding codes that as we like even physically focus on them, you know, with our eyes, it like sort of we tap into something. And I'm just curious if you spent a lot of time doing that.
Yeah, for sure. And I surround myself with the energy of that, because it's true. Like sacred geometry does have an energy to it, right? And what's beautiful about Metatron's cube as a geometric form is that it holds, you know, the energy of the triangle, which is the strongest foundational base, and then the 2 triangles intermix becomes the Merkaba, or the Star of David, or this really sacred symbol in so many different cultures. And then when you bring in the circles overlay perfectly with the flower of life and the interconnectedness of all things. And then the power of the Metatron's cube is every one of these points connects with every other one. So they're all interconnected. And so with that, you know, emotional sovereignty connects to unconditional love connects to connection to source. Like every one of these points interconnects, and they have a relationship with each other. And so it's like this really potent reminder of how alignment works in our life when all of these pieces, and I'm certain that the more I, you know, sit with it, the more meditated with it, there's even more mysteries that are waiting for it. And it really feels like that principle of never ending expansion is like, oh, you'll never understand all of this. You'll never will.
Yeah, right. We can only reach and know that we'll never arrive at the end point. It's like, that's why I feel it's such a profound truth. Like the journey is the goal, because as much as you grow and expand, when you think of source as being infinite in all directions, it's like you're as equidistance away from reaching the end of the journey, because there is no end to the journey. So just relax into what you're doing. I think it's important.
Yeah, I think it's super important. And I think even like someone asked me once, it's like, hey, are you an expert on the superconscious? And I was like, no, there are no experts on the superconscious. Like, it's like, that's like, do you know who God is? Right? Like no one knows who God is. Like you can't explain what God is. Like anyone that claims to be an expert of it obviously doesn't understand it, because we're all like infants in our awareness and our capacity to like experience everything and all but being in the mystery, right? Being in the great mystery is like the immersion of ourselves into the journey, and then loving like the power of not knowing, right? The power of like releasing the need to even
be the expert. Yeah, I always say we teach best what we most need to learn. And of course, we've all heard the more you know, the more you realize you don't know, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Before we continue on with today's episode, I'd like to take a quick moment to tell you about a podcast that is focused on answering the big questions in life, called Stories of Impact. Did you know that there are researchers out there working daily to discover scientific evidence about how you can flourish? Join Tavia Gilbert as she shares and connects with compelling stories all about the ongoing scientific exploration of how to live better, and shares key discoveries of research grantees from the Templeton World Charity Foundation. I listened to an episode with Deepak Chopra where he discusses how human flourishing is intimately tied into our ability to tap into the flow state, which really resonates with me. As you know, if you have read my book, I wholeheartedly believe in the importance of focusing our flow. So to continue improving your physical and mental health, tune into new episodes the first and third Tuesday of the month by subscribing and listening wherever you get your podcast. And be sure to check out storiesofimpact.org.
And that's like the beautiful part of this journey is just like stepping into like curiosity and wonder and being a beginner, no matter how much we've learned or how much we've done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, something that when I hear Metatron, what comes to mind, I remember many years ago hearing Santana, the music artist. Have you ever heard him talk about this?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so you will definitely find it interesting. I'm 99% sure. I mean, there's a chance I'm flubbing this, but I'm pretty sure it was like, and this goes way back. Remember he had the really big hit with the guy from, is it Matchbox 20 or something? Like 10, 15 years ago. It was a huge hit. It was Santana and the singer guy. I think it's Matchbox 20 if I'm Rob something. Anyway, huge hit. I forget the name of the song. You've all heard it for sure. I could look it up. But I remember reading...
Smooth?
Yes. You got it. So he basically, before that, he was huge in the 60s. He was at Woodstock, I believe. And, and then all of a sudden here, all these decades later, he has one of the biggest songs, of the decade, probably. It was massive. And he said before it happened, he had an experience where Archangel Metatron appeared to him and told him, you're about to be all on the, across the airwaves. And, this whole story of his experience with Metatron, Archangel Metatron, prior to this massive, worldwide hit that he was a part of decades after his original success. And I remember that. And so anytime I hear Metatron, I think back. So you should check that story out. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that with me. I'm excited, and it's interesting because Metatron is like more and more prevalent. There's more and more people channeling Metatron, right? Like bringing his wisdom back into the world and sharing that. And I feel honored to be one of those vessels for that sacred wisdom.
Yeah, definitely. And as you said, you feel like it kind of came through you. And it's like, I believe so many great teachings. I mean, even looking at people who are, claiming to channel, I always say with that sort of, I'm less even interested on, I guess the way I think of it is like, would it be any weirder that some other force is coming through someone than the fact that they're there at all? We've gotten so used to this idea that we exist at all, which is pretty bizarre. And it's like when you look at the information that people, in many cases, I mean, I've had like Paul Selig on the show as a good example recently. And, it's like, okay, when you look at the information that he's claiming is coming through him, it is so intense and profound and high level and brilliant, intelligent. And it's like, it just, I think even you look at people like Mozart, he's claiming the same thing. It's like, I think all of us any great work of art or teaching is channeled to some degree. And it's just our awareness of it, that is, some people I think are more aware of that process than others. Curious what you think.
I think this is one of the primary aspects of the superconscious, right? And it's one that a lot of people are really familiar with, especially those that are wisdom keepers and those that are sharing a message. I know you've experienced it, but all of these different times, like for me, I know that I'm most tuned in and I'm being a vessel for source when I'm leading a coaching call or guiding someone through a journey or facilitating an event. And as I'm speaking, I'm not thinking from Gerald's mind. I feel this energy moving through me and like these words coming through my mouth that aren't mine. And I'm like, oh my gosh, somebody take notes. This is really good shit. I don't know what, like my brain's kind of out here, like observing what's coming through, but I know it's not mine. I know it's the message coming through me, and I just get to be a voice or channel for that. And that's a really common thing for people when they get into flow state and they're sharing the wisdom and they're allowing their heart to just speak with the message that's, coming through. And it's an incredible feeling, right? You're like on purpose when you get to be that voice or the channel for divine truth.
Yeah, definitely. You're doing something right when that is happening. I would say, definitely some alignment taking place. Well, I'd love to just hear from you. For someone who, okay, all of the codes of conscious creation, these principles, what would you say is required for mastery of these principles for someone who's like, okay, all of that makes sense. How do I really get on the other side of that?
Yeah,
If
it's a
there
really
is
good
such a
question.
thing.
So yeah, and it's something that's it's like everything. It's a practice. It's a practice. It's a practice. And so the way that we do it is every single morning we do something called soul activation, and this is something that
Mm,
like is open to the public. And we actually started this at the beginning of COVID, like
mm-hmm.
2.5 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and we've done it every single day since then. So at 8:40 Mountain Time, 7:40 Pacific Time, every single day. If you go to legendaryzoom.com, you can join a
Mm-hmm.
small group of people, including me and a small other group, and we do soul activation. And the purpose is each day to practice. And so on Mondays,
Cool.
the practice is radical responsibility. Like
Cool.
what, and there's like very specific practices for radical responsibility, like tuning in and checking in and observing like where you're at in things and taking honest inventory and like being able to like have this clear perspective of what you're creating and where you're at. Tuesdays is purposeful production. And the practice is getting really clear on what your goals and dreams are and what the inspired action steps are and what you need to do to bring life to those dreams. Wednesdays is emotional sovereignty, and Thursdays is unconditional love, and Fridays is unapologetic expression. So with 7 days of the week, it gives you one day to focus on each practice, each principle. And in doing
Mm-hmm.
that, then all of a sudden you experience deeper embodiment in all the other days, right? And like it really creates a deeper space of alignment. And so once again, that's an invitation. If anyone wants to join us, legendaryzoom.com, 7:40 Pacific Time. Every single day we're there. And it's open and free to public because it's something I notice when I do it. When I can begin my day at a levels 10 state, everything's easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If I try to wake up and I'm feeling level 4 and I'm feeling resistance and frustration and overwhelm, and I try to work from a level 4 state, everything sucks and it's really hard for me to create the result I want. So I just realized
Yeah.
if I actually start the day doing some practice to raise my vibrational energy to level 10, then everything's easy, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
Very cool that you
practice.
offer that. And how long do those Zooms typically
It's
go?
just 20 minutes, right? We do
Oh,
5 minutes
cool.
of gratitude at the beginning. We do 15 minutes. Typically involves some breathing, some meditation, a few principles to kind of guide our mind and in the direction that we want. And I'm not the only facilitator. I facilitate a couple days a week. Then we have these other amazing people that like share and facilitate as well. But 20 minutes as an investment to anchor yourself back to your highest and best level 10 version self.
Love that. Love that. That's really, really great. I definitely agree that finding whether that or some sort of practice to even start your day on that right, on that right footing, right?
Yeah.
It's something that you hear time and time again from people, how important it has been in their own journey. As opposed to instantly popping up in your eyes, grabbing your phone, thinking about like the, go, 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 rush, 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 whatever. It really sets the tone, right?
Yeah, and there's lots of practices, for each of these different things, and the question is like, what anchors you back to a state of alignment? And for some people, it's
Yeah.
meditation. For some people, it's yoga. For some people, it's hanging out with high vibrational friends and being in like a space. For some people, there's books or learning that they do to
Qigong.
like bring them
Yeah.
back home. Yeah, like there's so many different beautiful practices, but to like intentionally spend time in each of the different principles and tune in. It's like, okay, how can I take more emotional sovereignty? And then the beautiful thing is like when it's been practiced, if you experience being triggered by something, you come back to the practice. Like, okay, how do I recenter myself? How do I get back to my own energy field? How
Yeah.
do I allow myself to be solid in who I am? And the practice allows life to be so much more graceful.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Of the seven, principles that you've just went over a few minutes ago, is there one in particular that you feel is most important? I mean, obviously you have sort of the foundational one that you tied to the root chakra. Is it like, okay, if someone's listening to this and they're really just newly on their journey, their spiritual journey, they're really trying to find their bearings, is there, do you recommend someone focusing more on one than the other?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think what I would say is this: like, they're all interconnected, they're all essential, but the one to begin with is, I would say, emotional sovereignty. Knowing how to
Mm,
find your center, knowing how to stay in that space. And sovereignty is the essence of all of it. All of our work is designed to help people reclaim sovereignty in their life. And what that means is escaping the energy of victimhood and believing that everything outside of you is the things that are directing how you feel and how you experience life. And emotional sovereignty is built on the idea that everything is vibration, everything is energy, and in understanding that everything's energy, then when we take stewardship of the energy that we're experiencing, then when we live in a high vibrational state, everything works out easily and joyfully and fun. And when we're in a low vibrational state, it's struggle and hardship and scarcity and fear. And so the best way to recognize what vibrational energy we're putting off is this amazing thing called emotions, right? Our emotions
right.
will instantly tell us where we're at. So,
Yeah.
Dr. David Hawkins, he wrote this book, Power versus Force.
Yeah.
And
Great
in
one.
this, he like measured all of these different emotional states from 0 to 1,000 in terms of like the vibrational energy. And the low vibrational energies, everyone knows, like, what are low vibrational emotions? People like sadness, fear, anger, right? And so in Dr. David Hawkins, like at 20 on the vibrational scale is shame, and 30 is guilt. And then moving up from there, like these really heavy low energies. And what's important to remember is we cannot create a level 10 life from our level 1 self, right? It's impossible for us to show up in relationships or show up in our work if we walk in and we're feeling guilt and shame and sadness and depression and fear. like like it's like trying to carry like this, trying to move forward with this like heavy anchor pulling us back, so in understanding that, then our goal is to shift our emotional frequency and raise ourselves to high vibrational emotional states. So what are those? Well, obviously that's love and joy and wonder and bliss and all these different things. And if we can step into being blissful, and we know how to run the emotional recipe within us, we know how to control our emotional state and move from a level 1 to a level 10. When we know how to do that, then all of a sudden we have the most extraordinary power in the universe, right? We have this ability to like step back into our highest and best self no matter what is happening outside of us. And I was listening to a conversation by Sadhguru um,
Mm-hmm.
recently, and I think it was actually Aubrey Marcus that was interviewing him. And Sadhguru said, he's like humans are amazing. We have the ability to live in heaven, but to experience hell, right? He's like, someone
Mm-hmm.
can be living in Los Angeles, or they can be living in San Diego where everything's beautiful, and yet they suffer and they're sad and they're depressed, right? Like humans are extraordinary because they can be in the most beautiful place but still be suffering. But we also have the ability to be in hell and experience heaven. Like I think of like Nelson Mandela being imprisoned, right? But still choosing to be in a
Right.
beautiful state and choosing to like focus on love and all of these different examples. Thinking of Viktor Frankl, and who
Right.
was in
Right. In
a
concentration camp.
concentration camp, but chose to emerge, like holding the sovereignty and choosing to choose forgiveness over like it's extraordinary that we have that beautiful ability to like be in a blissful state regardless of what external environments are. And what's interesting is how easy it is for most people to get knocked off track emotionally, right? All it takes is a negative comment on Facebook, or all it takes is, someone not responding to them, or all it takes is getting cut off in traffic, and they stew in this like really toxic energy for a long time, right? Because they just haven't learned how to take the steering wheel of their own emotional states. So I would say emotional sovereignty and knowing how to be like fully responsible for the emotional state that we're in is a really potent one, really powerful one to start with.
Really powerful. Yeah, it's deciding to show up proactively, right? Like, okay, most people, it's like they're like puppets on a string, right? If this happens, I'm happy. If this happens, I'm sad. If this happens, and it's like you start playing with the idea or realizing the profound truth that there is no out there. You want to change that state. It's all starting from your internal state. And as you just shared, some examples, it's like if someone can find bliss in a concentration camp and a bowl of water with a fish head floating in it as their meal for the day, that's tapping into some power right there. And ultimately, it's what's exciting about that is like, as you are resonating with that sort of blissed out energy, it's like, I like to say, if you want to know what you'll see tomorrow, look at what you're feeling or resonating with today. There's sort of a lag in 3D. So sometimes it's like, we end up chasing like, it turns into this feedback loop of like, oh, okay, life is this way. And so I'm feeling crappy. Okay. And then tomorrow it shows up another way, I'm feeling crappy. But if you shift that and you can tap into your inner joy and a perspective of embracing what is, understanding that it's all happening for you, not to you. And then ultimately, I believe it's inevitable that you're going to start to see shifts in the external with this sort of lag principle. And I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah, exactly. The quote that I share with this is every word that we speak and every thought that we think is a seed for creating a future reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every word I speak, every thought I think is a seed for creating a future reality. Like we really have, we're the magic genies of our life, and we're speaking to the universe the things that we are calling into existence. And when we're unconscious with that, when we don't understand the power of words, we say, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so sick, or I'm so tired, or why does life suck, right? When we do that, we're actually commanding the universe to bring us more problems and challenges and difficulties, right? We're like literally using
you're casting a spell.
Yeah, you're casting the spell for life to be challenging because of our words and our energy. And so that becomes a really sacred stewardship to recognize in the garden of my life, I'm always planting seeds for the future. And so I'm just going to invite everyone to step into the challenge. It's like to only speak that which you want to experience, right? This is like for me in my life, everyone that knows me always hears me say, I never get sick. I am always healthy. I am always
Same
healthy.
thing.
I'm always healthy. And I haven't been sick in like 15 years. Like one day,
Same thing.
I was under the weather a little bit. Like COVID, I wasn't worried for a second about COVID, right? Not for a second, because I'm like, I know I speak into existence that I have a ridiculously powerful immune system, that I'm always healthy. And because of that, that's what I always experience, right?
Yep.
And so like I'm really intentional about that, and like really choosing to like make sure that my words are in alignment with my desire.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I started telling the same story when I was a teenager. Like, I don't believe in getting sick. Someone's got the flu. Oh, stay away from me. I'm like, oh, no, I don't believe in getting sick. And really, I'm just like programming them to tell the same story for me and contribute to, the experience. And like you said, I'm not going to say I've never been sick, but usually I barely remember ever being sick. And usually when I have, I can look at it and say, oh, okay, I decided to go way too hard at Burning Man for a week or something that I did that was not sort of in my normal flow and self-care. Yeah. So,
and even with that, the way that I perceive those symptoms is I perceive them as, oh, my body's just actively healing right now. I don't look at sickness as a bad thing. It's a process of active healing. So even when I see other people that are experiencing just different symptoms and like they're throwing up or they have a fever, it's like, oh my gosh, your body's a miracle. Like it's actively healing. You're not sick. Your body's doing exactly what it needs to cleanse itself from whatever toxins you allow it to get in it. And what a miracle that your body is so whole and complete that it's like flushing your
Yep.
system with a fever and flu, right? Like what a gift.
It's such a different, perspective and story than what the average person is telling with that
Yeah.
those circumstances. I mean, this was really, landed for me in a potent way when I was having issues, and I've had issues off and on with eczema a little bit, where it's like, oh, my skin, it's like from gluten or, diet stuff, where it'll get red and rashy and kind of like, little spots of it. And as I was doing the research on it, like what's the cause, what's, trying to figure it all out. I remember, seeing someone talk about it and said, look, when this is happening, that's because your body has, it sort of prioritizes what needs to be maintained to keep you healthy. And when it's maintained all the basic things it needs to maintain, now it's doing okay. Now we can go in and get rid of these toxins. We've gotten to the point where this less important vital thing, we can dump toxins, and then you're seeing it as a rash on your skin or whatever. It's actually a heat, like you said, it's actively healing, and it's only gotten to the point that can happen because you're pretty well maintained elsewhere. So it's like, okay, we can shift our focus to this less important, issue. So I thought that was a really interesting way to look at it. It really just, it's a very tangible way of seeing that that's exactly what's happening. Your body is doing its magic.
Yeah, and our minds have such incredible influence over our physical experience. And like there's so many studies that demonstrate this, about how our thoughts become a reality, and the power of like the placebo and all of these different things, which was really fascinating as someone who has studied the mind so much, to watch like the whole COVID phenomena and just watch this global mass hypnosis wash over people, and watching the fear. And like I heard a story of this woman that she was a therapist, and one of the people she was working with was so terrified and so paranoid about getting it that she didn't leave her house for 2 years, right? She didn't interact with anyone. And then of course she got a really severe case of COVID without ever interacting with anyone. It's like, of course she did, right? Like how could she not? Because her brain was so hardwired to this fear that her whole system had to manifest it in order to prove herself right.
Right.
And like I heard countless stories. The people that were most paranoid were always the ones that got sick. They always were, right? The people like that were like weren't worried about it at all and fully engaged in life, and were hugging and like being around people, and like fuck social distancing. They're like really embracing the fullness of life. They were the ones that are healthiest and had the most vital, strong immune systems, and had nothing to worry about because they weren't giving into the hypnosis that was being programmed through the entire society. So anyways, obviously I have a soapbox feeling about that.
Yeah. No,
but it was
I'm with you.
It was so fascinating to watch. It's like, oh my gosh, everywhere I go, I look at programs.
Still, I see people walking around, I was downtown LA yesterday and see someone walking around, no one within, 100 yards of them with a mask on. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, to be in their head is so vastly different than where my perspective has been. It's such a contrast.
Exactly. But once again, it's just like recognizing that our minds, our conscious, subconscious, and superconscious minds really have influence over our experience of life. And it's not to disvalidate, other people's experience. They are creating the life that they choose, right? Someone that's right. In those, they're experiencing challenge. It's like they're living the life that they choose, and giving them like permission to live that. But for us, as sovereign conscious creators, really being intentional with the things that we put into the field and choose to manifest and create.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to shift gears for a moment as we kind of start winding down here and hear from you. As the listeners know, I love story time. Any inspiring stories of synchronicity or serendipity or a positive paranormal story? I have to imagine you have something fun and inspiring.
Yeah, I'll share I'll share something. Like I love thinking about like what's the most mind blowing thing I've ever seen, And there was this experience. I had an opportunity to go and
I
spend
like
a
the way
month
this
with.
started, by the way.
Yeah,
The most
like
mind-blowing thing. Okay.
these type of things that you think, holy shit, I had no idea that was even possible.
Right.
Like really is so profound and so beyond. And like one of the things I mentioned as one of the manifestations of the superconscious is Shakti powers, like these superhuman abilities. And so when I was in India, I was there for a 30-day meditation yoga retreat with this enlightened guru over there, and one of his disciples had developed the ability for materialization and to
Oh,
be able to
wow.
like create something from nothing. And so I
Wow.
remember sitting with her, and I was like probably 5 feet away from her, so I'm like really close. And there's a group of 100 of us, and she's teaching about materializations, and she's talking about what it feels like and how to get out of the mind and meditation. She's like, okay, we've talked enough. How many of you would like to see it? Right? So she's like,
Wow.
she's so non assuming about it. Like, and
Yeah,
I'm like, we're like, yes, let's see it, because
yeah.
we've all heard stories about what she does, but I had never seen anything like this. And so she eats a little banana so she gets some energy, and then she drops in and she closes her eyes, and she spends like 1 or 2 minutes just like tapping into the field and like really getting tuned in and in the state of meditation. Then you see her like move her body just a little bit, and then she opens up her mouth and reaches in, and through her throat she manifested, materialized a perfectly formed diamond.
What?
A diamond, perfectly formed, straight from her
Wow.
throat. Out of the ether, she brought this diamond into existence. And then
Wow.
she hands it around so we could all look at it, and sure enough, it's like perfectly formed. And it's interesting because like for whatever reason, this is one of her Shakti powers that she had developed, and being able to tap into like these like superhuman abilities. And they'd actually done scans with her where she's like under a CAT scan or whatever, and they're scanning her as she's materializing this. And so like it's like really
So they can see
scientifically,
it's
it's
not
like
like being hidden like somewhere
it's
in her
not
mouth or whatever.
some magic trick, right? Like it's like genuine materialization, and like this like tapping into like, holy, what on earth did I just see?
Yeah.
How is that
Yeah.
even possible? And I
Wow.
love thinking about how little we know about what we're capable of, right? Like
Yeah.
how 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 much more than just humans we really are, right?
Yeah.
And to
Yeah.
be able to think about, if that's possible, then what else is possible?
Well, it's like, it's this law of emergence idea that Derek Rydell on the show talked about years ago that's kind of always stuck with me. It's like the acorn, you take an acorn, if you put it on a shelf, the little boy picks it up, puts it on a shelf, nothing happens. You put it in the right conditions, right sunlight, right soil, right water, it's going to grow into this oak tree, which is this incredible, you know, uh, manifestation out of this itty bitty little thing, and it's like I feel like we're all that in some way, shape, or form. It's like, she has watered that gift and focused on that gift and suspended disbelief long enough to be able to achieve something as phenomenal as that. And it's just like, what a trip. Imagine when a larger percentage of the population starts tapping into the realization that, these sorts of things are possible. It's going to be a different world.
Yeah, and it's kind of like Roger Bannister with the 4 minute mile. Once one person
Yep.
taps into these abilities, and all of a sudden other people are like, oh my gosh, that's possible. All right.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden all these other people start manifesting and experiencing like similar powers. And I think that's the edge of consciousness that we're entering into. Like more of these superhuman abilities are becoming more and more common. And I think
Yeah.
that's the gift of the age that we live in. Like there's
Yeah.
so many things that years ago would have been inconceivable or unimaginable that are just going to become, oh yeah, of course, like that's normal.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep, it is an interesting time to be alive for sure, my friend. And this has been awesome to drop in with you today. And I know the listeners have thoroughly enjoyed it. What is the best way for people to connect with you, follow your work, etc.?
Yeah, let me give a couple different options for people. Obviously, if you search Gerald Rogers on Facebook, I'm pretty easy to find there. I'm always sharing stuff there. And then if you really want to start immersing yourself in the energy of our tribe and what we do, join us for soul activation, 7:40 a.m. Pacific time on legendaryzoom.com. So every single day we're there. And then for those that
You do
are
that
like,
7 days a week?
7 days a week, done it for
Wow.
almost 2.5, 3 years now. So
That's
it's
impressive.
something that, well, it's something that I realized, like at the beginning of COVID, we're like, how do we pull our tribe together, and how do we make sure people don't get lost down the rabbit hole of darkness? And we
Yeah.
started a 21-day challenge, and that 21-day challenge we started doing, it's just like after the 21 days where I was like, this is so powerful as a tool for all of us
Yep.
to stay aligned. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's small, sometimes there's 10 of us, and sometimes there's a lot, but it's like this space for me. I do it because I know that when I do it, life is so much easier, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
invite anyone that wants to play in that space. That'd be powerful. If anyone wants to join us, we have a 21-day challenge that's coming up soon to just like really raise our vibrational state and really create the life that we want. And it's a daily practice of accessing the superconscious. So that's coming up. If you go to superconscious.eventbrite.com, you can gain access to that. There's a small fee for that, but with that also you have an opportunity to come to one of our 3-day events. One of our 3-day events is just like, it's a powerful space to join community, to join a high vibrational tribe, to be able to really experience the power of living in your superconscious state. So if you want more details on that event, if you go to legendaryseminar.com, that's where you can find out that. And I'm going to give the listeners that are here a special discount code there. If you go to that, normally it's $1,995, but if you use the code word tribe, it'll just take it down to $497. So you can
Sweet.
come join us for 3 days and experience like magical transformation. And that's once again
Incredible.
legendaryseminar.com. Use the code word tribe.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. I'm sure some people will be checking out, those various offerings. And this, like I said, this has been amazing. I do have one final question for you, and it's my cliche closer, and it is this. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life, according to Gerald Rogers?
60 seconds are left. The meaning of life. For me, what life is all about is it's like this pursuit of purpose, a pursuit of life, the purpose of growing and expanding and exploring our potential and seeing how big we can open up our hearts and how much we can return home to the remembrance of who we truly are. It feels like the moment we were born, we forgot that we came from unconditional love. We forgot that we are divine. And so our journey is the purpose of life is to forget what we think we are so we can remember who we truly are.
Yes, I love that. It's like removing the obstacles in the way that to illuminate what you already are, in a sense. So thank you, my friend, for sharing. This has been awesome. And all of you for tuning your beautiful brainwaves and incredible hearts into another episode. Until next time, journey well.
Thank you so much.
Also, before we sign off, I wanted to remind you to download the Golden Key audio or ebook as my free gift to you at goldenkey.gift using the Golden Key code POSITIVEHEAD. And please, if you enjoy my gift, leave a positive review on Amazon so others can find the book and unlock their lives with the help of the Golden Key as well.